It was a cold Thursday morning in late November, and David Carter's hands trembled, not from the chill, but from the weight of uncertainty crushing his spirit. He had just walked his 6-year-old daughter Emily to school, watching her tiny figure bounce happily ahead of him with her pink backpack. She had smiled up at him with complete trust, as if she knew her daddy would make everything okay. But the truth was, David didn't even know how he would keep the lights on next week. A few months ago, he had a steady job as a mechanic at a local garage in upstate New York. Then, without warning, the shop shut down due to financial losses. Since then, every job interview had ended in disappointment. Bills were piling up, food was running low, and Christmas was just weeks away. His wife had passed 2 years earlier from cancer, leaving David to raise Emily alone while drowning in medical debt. Life had never felt heavier. After dropping Emily off that morning, David wandered aimlessly through town, eventually stopping near a quiet bus stop. As he sat down on a bench to rest, something unusual caught his eye, a brown leather wallet lying just under the seat. He glanced around. No one in sight. He picked it up and opened it. Inside were several $100 bills, a driver's license, and some old receipts. The name on the ID read Michael W. Thornton, with an address just a few blocks away. For a long moment, David just stared at the money. It was enough to buy groceries, maybe pay a portion of rent. It could even get Emily a small Christmas gift. His stomach growled and his heart ached. He looked down again. No one would know. No cameras. No witnesses. But the wallet wasn't his. And deep down, he knew what he had to do. With the wallet in his coat pocket, David walked the 5 blocks in silence. When he reached the house, a small brick home with a faded red door, he hesitated at the steps. What if the man accused him of stealing? What if this whole thing somehow went wrong? Still he knocked. A few moments later, an elderly man opened the door. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were kind and alert. David extended the wallet. "I think you dropped this," he said. The man's eyes widened in surprise as he took it. "My God! I didn't even realize. I was out walking earlier. Thank you. You don't know how much this means." David offered a small smile and turned to leave, but the man called out, "Wait, what's your name?" David turned. "David Carter." The man nodded. "Well, David, come inside. At least let me offer you a cup of coffee." David hesitated but followed. Inside, the house was warm and cozy, filled with shelves of books and family photos. The man introduced himself as Michael Thornton, a retired history professor. Over coffee, they talked. David didn't pour out his full story, but shared enough for Michael to understand he was a single father going through tough times. Michael listened quietly, then leaned back and said, "Do you believe in fate, David?" David let out a tired breath. "I used to. Not anymore." Michael smiled gently. "I used to say the same, until a stranger returned my wallet today." He left the room briefly, and returned with a folder in hand. "My nephew runs a non-profit organization that helps single parents get back on their feet. They're looking for someone with your skills, mechanical work, maintenance, repairs. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work." David could hardly believe what he was hearing. That night, he read every page in the folder like it was a gift from the heavens. He applied the next morning. The interview happened that same week. 2 days later, he was offered a job. But the surprises didn't end there. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived in the mail. It was from Michael. Inside was a handwritten note. "You returned my wallet with no expectation of reward. That kind of man deserves a break. Consider this a thank you from someone who still believes in integrity." Along with the note was a check for $5,000. David sank to the kitchen floor and wept, overwhelmed by the kindness and relief. Red was covered, the fridge would be full, and Emily would have a warm winter coat and a small Christmas tree in the living room. That night, as he tucked Emily into bed, she looked up at him and whispered, "See, Daddy? I told you things would get better." David smiled through misty eyes, holding her close, feeling, for the first time in a long time, that maybe they would be okay after all.